Hi everyone, it's Liz the Frugal Libertarian. I'm getting a little late on the ball on this and I apologize, but I finally was able to sit and watch the entire CNN Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz debate on the repeal, reform, replace ideas about the Affordable Care Act. Let me start by saying I don't like Bernie Sanders. I am not a socialist. I am not a communist. I did not like what he was putting down. Let's just say that. I'm also, if I'm bluntly honest, I'm not a fan of Ted Cruz either. I was years ago when he was filibustering against the Affordable Care Act's, rollout. I appreciated him then. I felt like he was someone a little different. He was more libertarian leaning. I liked that. Then he came out to run for president as a Republican and went full on theocrat. I don't like that. To me, there were two things that kind of went over the entire debate. One of them was the fact that Ted Cruz clearly came prepared. Sure, he probably didn't do all the research himself. He probably had researchers, interns working in his office, on his staff, thanks Goose, on his staff who researched the actual numbers for him and gave him those numbers. That, to me, I don't really care because he clearly read through it and memorized quite a bit of it so that he would know where to go back and reference. So that he actually came prepared. He had statistics, he had numbers, he had personal anecdotes from actual people who've contacted him. He came prepared. Bernie Sanders did not come prepared. He came prepared with his presidential primary season talking points. The only statistics I remember him bringing up were how much money the health insurance executives made in bonuses. Like, that was the only number he had. Like, really? Really? And that to me was part of the worst part of the entire debate, was the fact that how did Bernie Sanders think he could show up with his preconceived propaganda talking points and think that it would go well for him? Like, who told him that was a good idea? While the debate was going on, I was making notes. And I have 4 pages of notes on the things that I heard that either to me were bunk or were close to bunk. One of the things Bernie Sanders said really early in the debate, and he kept referencing over and over again as if it's accurate, was, "We are the only major country on earth that allows private insurance companies to run the system." Wrong, Bernie. I feel like Bernie Sanders is so entrenched in the talking points that he has never looked at anything regarding those talking points. Ever. Like, he wrote them and then he just never looked at Google again. Like, he has no clue how Google works and just forget about it. There's this country in Europe that's one of the ones that Bernie Sanders loves to talk about when he talks about social medicine and democratic socialism and all of that Leninist propaganda. Unfortunately for him, one of them went back to private insurance instead of government-controlled universal health care. And that country is Sweden. Sweden tried universal health care and they discovered that their citizens received better care at a lower cost once they allowed private insurers to step in and deflect the costs of some care for people. So Bernie's wrong. He's wrong. He's been wrong. Much like when he was campaigning and he kept referencing Denmark as a example of democratic socialism, and then the Prime Minister of Denmark said, "Please shut up and stop calling us that, because we're not." Bernie doesn't, like I said, he seems to memorize his talking points decades ago and then just never looked into any new information. I've talked about it in my other video. He kept insisting on the propaganda about how you couldn't get insurance if you didn't have an employer getting it for you, and you couldn't get it if you had a pre-existing condition. Pre-existing condition, very rare and very expensive pre-existing condition, no insurance through an employer, still purchased health insurance directly from the insurance company. Sorry, Bernie. Untrue. Oh my God. He kept, it really, as the debate went on, it became less about the Affordable Care Act, how it has helped or harmed people, and whether it should be repealed, replaced, or reformed. It turned, as the video kept going, as the debate kept going, it morphed into a private healthcare market run by market forces versus social medicine, universal coverage, blah, blah, blah. It became socialism versus capitalism. As the debate kept going, it completely deviated from the Affordable Care Act. And again, Bernie was there with all his talking points in place. I should have counted, and I didn't, how many times he used the words greedy, how many times he used them in conjunction with greedy corporations, how many times he bitched about people wanting to make money, because I know that's so evil. The man who never worked a day in his life thinks people who work to earn money are bad people. Oh, shocking. Basically, Bernie Sanders' love of communism just kept coming out, and there was no way for him to stop it. He kept talking about how great Medicare is, and not Medicare for all, or Medicaid for all. Basically saying that guarantees you health, it guarantees you health care. And no, it doesn't. And that's the thing too, is he was confusing insurance, health insurance, with health care. They are not the same thing. And this is one of the things that the proponents of the Affordable Care Act and the proponents of social medicine like to do. They take those two words and act like they're the same thing. Like, increasing insurance increases care. Actually, it doesn't. Especially the way it's been forced upon us by the government right now. It actually decreases care because the insurance companies don't want to pay for your care. You get a deductible so ridiculously high due to the government mandates that you can never get care because you can't afford to go to pay the premium, pay down the deductible, and then go and get the care, so you just never get the care. Bernie's quest for social medicine really meant that he ignored a lot of questions that had to do with prices, that had to do with the costs of healthcare. He really just didn't even want to discuss it. Somebody would ask him something and he'd deflect it out and not talk about it. And he refused to talk about the fact that the people, like I have said, like I have lived, the people on government-controlled insurance and government-controlled programs have worse outcomes, which is what Ted Cruz pointed out. It's like I said in my other video, the reason people on Medicaid go to the emergency room for an ear infection or a sore throat has nothing to do with them just wanting to waste money. It has to do with the fact that they probably don't have primary doctors because doctors won't take the insurance. So for every minor thing, they have to go to the emergency room, which costs 4 times as much as it would have if they'd just gone to a doctor. But they don't have a doctor because doctors won't take it because it's a terrible thing to have. And that was like, Ted Cruz kept bringing that up and Sanders just never even addressed it. At one point, he even brought up the idea that the government should be trying to get doctors, people, he combined the idea of free college with the idea of free medicine, with the idea that the government should incentivize doctors to go to areas where there aren't many doctors. That the government, government should forgive student loans if you go become a primary care physician in the middle of Nebraska instead of going and becoming a plastic surgeon in LA because you need the money to pay off your student loans. To me, that kind of really super smacked the communism, the idea that the government should tell doctors what form of medicine they need to practice instead of allowing them to follow something that's their passion or what they want to do. My niece is pre-med right now. She wants to be a pediatrician. Do I want the government going in there and going, no, you can't be a pediatrician because we have plenty of pediatricians. We want you to do ears, nose, and throat. Do I really want them doing that to her? No. So his whole idea about that to me was like, ugh, come on. This is ridiculous. Like, you're going to point a gun at a doctor's head and tell them, go practice medicine over there. No. No, no, no. Bernie kept trying to argue that individual choices made by the patient are just as bad as government oversight rationing. Because Ted Cruz brought up, quite rightly, that there are countries in Europe that have social medicine where health care, the actual care patients receive, is heavily rationed. People wait very long times for treatment of illnesses. They wait a very long time for operations. They wait, especially if you're elderly, you might never get the surgery you need. You may never get the treatments you need because it's being rationed. They don't consider it as good to waste that on you because you're gonna die soon anyway, so who cares? I know that firsthand because my husband's grandparents have dual citizenship with the United States and Italy, and yet when my grandmother-in-law got intestinal cancer, she paid for it out of pocket, didn't have any insurance, paid for the surgery out of pocket here in the United States. Same thing with his grandfather's tinnitus procedures and cataract surgeries and all this other stuff. Why? Because when they were in Italy, they were basically told, you will sit on the waiting list and you will die before you'll get treatments. Things like the tinnitus procedures, tinnitus treatments, well, that's not that important. You can live with tinnitus, so that's not on our priority list. You're gonna have to wait a long time for that treatment. That is true rationing, Bernie Sanders. That is true rationing. People here in the United States who have been forced into an insurance plan by the government, and that plan will not pay for them to get care, so they don't go because they don't want to pay for it themselves. That's not rationing. That is a reactionary behavior due to the situation they've been forced into by the government. And to add into the Sweden thing, I just looked at my next note. He said he doesn't see countries junking their universal coverage. Yeah, Sweden! Oh my God, Bernie Sanders. Seriously, Bernie, Google, use it. Why is it these people can never freaking use Google? Ugh. Does he not have staffers that can use Google? The problem with this kind of nonsense being perpetuated by somebody who's considered a public official, who is considered to be somebody people look up to, they want him to be freaking president. They believe every word out of his mouth is true because they either don't want to look into whether or not it's true because they don't want to learn the reality, or they just don't care enough to look into the reality. They just take him at face value. So when he says that, I don't see these countries junking their universal coverage, they think that's true when it's not. And saying, no other country has private insurance companies like we do, they just go, that must be true. It's just like, pre-existing conditions. Well, you can't get coverage if you have pre-existing condition. Bernie Sanders says that. Did you ever try? Did you ever call up an insurance company and say, look, I have blah, blah, blah. Will you give me a policy? Did you ever do that? Probably not, because you don't either want to know the truth because you like the lies because they give you a personal benefit, or you're just too lazy to do so. But that was just irritating. And the whole thing I just brought up with Italy with my grandparents-in-law. Ted Cruz brought that up. He brought up about how true rationing is these universal coverage companies refusing to give treatments to the elderly. And what did Bernie Sanders do when Ted Cruz said that? He laughed like it wasn't true. To me, one of the worst exchanges back and forth was between a woman who owns hair salons and Bernie Sanders, where she was explaining that she personally doesn't have health insurance because she can't afford it. and that her profit margins are so slim, she cannot afford to give her employees health insurance. She wanted to reinvest. She wanted to hire more people, give more people more jobs. But she can't, because if she hires more people, she's going to be forced, due to the Affordable Care Act, to furnish them with health insurance, which she can't do. Which she can't afford to do. She can't open the business, hire the people, and give them this insurance. Bernie Sanders treated her like crap. At one point, he called her ridiculous, which I took to be actually pretty darned offensive of him. Like, he treated her like crap. He basically looked at her and was like, you own businesses? Well, you clearly are very wealthy. So you're the problem. You should be giving them insurance. I don't care what it costs you. Everyone deserves it. It is a right. He didn't listen to her. He didn't listen. He doesn't know anything about the business world. He just knows if you have a business, you must have deep pockets. Most small business owners, even people of her level, of her caliber, where she owned multiple salons, don't usually make a ton of money. They earn a comfortable living, but they don't earn anything extravagant. Most people who own one small business earn average about $40,000 a year. So when you're saying to them they've got to provide insurance for people, that money comes out of their income. Now they're not even earning $40,000 a year. So now they've been bumped down to basically minimum wage because you're telling them they have to do this. Are you surprised they're not hiring people? Are you surprised they're not expanding? Are you surprised that they're not opening new places and hiring new people? Are you surprised that when faced with that kind of reality, they choose to shut their business down instead of take the financial hit? Because they're the ones that will. Bernie Sanders treated this woman like garbage. He treated her like trash. He basically looked at her and said, I don't care. You're wrong. You're a bad person. You're a bad person. You're a bad person. And how dare he? This is a man who has never worked a real job in his life. He worked as a community organizer, getting government assistance. He worked, and then he got jobs as a politician. Then he got government jobs, elected government official jobs. He has never run a business. He has never worked in a real business before. And he thought he had the right to look at her and call her a bad person. Because and then he even points out, well, you know what's even worse about this situation is there's probably a salon down the street that is providing insurance to its employees and its prices are higher and you're undercutting them and you could be putting them out of business when they're doing the right thing for their employees because you don't give your employees what they're due to keep your prices low, to keep your profit high. Like oh my God, I do not know how that woman didn't just start yelling at him. I wouldn't have taken that. I don't care if I'm on CNN. I don't care. I would not have taken that from him. I would have told him off in the worst way because that was awful. Awful of Bernie Sanders. That was disgusting of a politician, a man who, again, he owns a $650,000 lake house. And he's going to yell at the woman who is employing people that she's the bad, greedy, capitalist person and how wrong she is and how she's destroying the community? Where does he get off? If you can't tell, I hate Bernie Sanders. I really do. I'm just going to say it. I hate Bernie Sanders. I don't like Ted Cruz and I hate Bernie Sanders. There were many more things that happened in this debate about the Affordable Care Act, which turned into not a debate about the Affordable Care Act. I had 4 pages of notes, and honestly, I'm looking at these, and I'm just getting sick to my stomach, even just looking at them. Like the fact that he tied class warfare into this debate. He sat there and talked about how if you're rich, you're gonna get coverage, but if you're poor, you're gonna die. He turned this into an argument about the 1%, the 2%, all that bullshit. I'm sorry. I can only hold it in for so long. Class warfare, Bernie Sanders, is an invention by politicians like you to make people hate each other so that we turn to you to make things fair, so that you get more power. It is an invention by politicians. It is not a real thing. Most people do not begrudge their neighbor for having the bigger house. And if they do, it's not the person with the bigger house's fault. It is the person who wants the bigger house, the person who is begrudging them, the person who's jealous, the person who is coveting what other people have. They're the bad people, Bernie Sanders, not the good people. The people who earn their money, the people who work for a living, are not the bad people, because they earn more than you think they should. Seriously, like this whole thing, it turned into, like I said, the class warfare. When he brought that in, I was like, are you friggin' kidding me? Can he make one speech? Can he have one debate? Can he talk once in his life and not talk about the 1%? And how they're ruining everything for everybody else. My battery is about to die, so yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff. I agreed with Cruz much more. I am not a person who supports Ted Cruz because I do think he is a theocrat. That's just how I feel about Ted Cruz. However, Cruz made the point that more government causes more problems. And if the government is already causing the problems that we have, why do people like Bernie Sanders think that more government will make things better? And honestly, Ted Cruz, that to me was the best takeaway from the entire debate. That and Bernie Sanders, again, developed talking points in the 1970s and has not updated them since because he can't be bothered. Because apparently he's too busy sitting there bitching about people who make more money than him, even though he is part of the 1%. Anyway, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch the debate, please do, and then leave me some comments and let me know what you thought about it. And I need to go, like, lay down in the dark and not think about things for a while because friggin' Bernie Sanders. Anyway, I am Liz, the Frugal Libertarian. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.